So companies are rushing to implement AI, but I think it's time to ask, when is AI implementation not the right solution? So let's talk to one of the superstars of data analytics at KPMG. With me today is Priya Mohan, an influential management consultant and AI strategist. Her background gives her some unique insights into operations and product development. She was featured in the 2023 DATAcated Tech and Predictions Report, and she was also handpicked as one of the 100 women for Samsung's exclusive AI program in the US. So, Priya, you really have an exciting mix in your educational background, which is amazing.
That's
Biomedical
right.
engineering, psychology, computer science. How do all these things and pieces fit together in your approach to AI?
Yeah, great question, Ray. So I have an engineering background. So I came from um, having a master's in biomedical engineering. So I've always been very passionate about technology and the latest developments in technology. So I started my career out at KPMG back about 6 or 7 years ago with the CIO advisory team. So we'd go and help identify issues within large companies that are either migrating, they're merging, or they have a major change that's coming up. We try to understand how we can go in with a technological solution to address some of the risks that they may be facing as part of this large change. So I've always been very interested in technology. I used to be that kid when I was small. I used to be that kid that would go into a doctor's office and really look at like all those little gadgets that are out there, and I'm absolutely curious about everything that I can get my hands on. So that's how my interest in AI developed. And over the course of my career, I've had several amazing opportunities to both learn, teach, and contribute to it within the AI space. So I've had the absolute pleasure of being able to have these opportunities.
That's pretty amazing. And I really love that you have this extremely sort of varied background. How do you think that some of those things kind of inform, the AI field? And, does it give you like maybe an extra advantage in kind of the work that you do?
Absolutely. So in today's world, AI is almost unavoidable. You open LinkedIn, you open a news app, you open the TV, everybody is talking about AI. And the fascinating thing about AI is that it's been there for a very long time. It's just the popularity of AI tools such as ChatGPT that's really brought about that awareness. So I've been a passionate follower and learner of AI technologies back when we got Alexa, and I was like, how does Alexa work? We all knew that it just talks back to us, but what does it do in the background? So that's where my curiosity started. But yes, to answer your question, having an understanding of how AI works, where to implement AI, what are the risks of AI, and when not to use AI, has really helped me understand my client's problem in a more holistic way and try to bring them these innovative new solutions into the existing problems so that we can provide them that catered, personalized solutions that they're looking for. So yes, it's absolutely, in at least in the very recent days, given me a very large added advantage. And I've been talking about AI for so long that when KPMG really started to, put on its accelerator on all things I was contacted to provide trainings at the annual training sessions alongside PhDs in data science and AI. So it's given me tremendous opportunities.
That's amazing. One of the things I like about these live streams is that we really get a global audience. So we have people checking in from Spain, Oregon, and the U.S., Egypt. We have Buenos Aires. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because they see somebody like me and you in the cover, and everybody from the world joins in. So it's really pretty amazing to have everybody joining in, and I appreciate everybody and thank you for putting where you're from. We even have more than this. Hold on, I scrolled too fast. Denmark, Phoenix. I'm in Florida, and it's really encouraging to see people coming in from everywhere. So let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about, I feel like some people might not know what KPMG, is and does. I know
Yeah.
that I know about it. It's a pretty famous company, but maybe you can discuss, like you mentioned, that when they started maybe attacking AI head on, that they called you for
Mhm.
some training. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what they do and how AI might relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So KPMG is a professional services firm that offers services in three major divisions: audit, tax, and advisory. So audit is the usual financial audits that are required by regulations, and I'm very much like putting things in a nutshell. But we do offer several different services within each of these larger pillars. And you have tax, of course, any corporate tax related services we do offer. We do offer services for some small businesses as well. And then advisory is a unique mix of talent and services that we offer, ranging from deal advisory to strategy, CIO advisory. We have technology risk management, which is the group that I'm part of. So it's pretty much advisory encompasses any and all services that where we come in with the knowledge of where the market stands and the subject matter expertise within each of those fields, and then
Hmm.
go in with the knowledge that we carry and the expertise that we've had over the past years serving other clients in that industry, and try to solve each customer's issue or needs, as you may say. So that's what KPMG does. It's a very large company. I think we have about 20,000 employees just in the US, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. We have several different offices in almost all of the major cities in the US. We're a global company. We're in almost all of the major cities in the world as well. So and the best part about working at KPMG is that we have so many different expertise in so many different fields that it's so easy to collaborate.
Hmm.
So that's why you'll see people from the risk management team working hand in hand with folks who are developing software, so that we can bring in those new technologies in the fields as they come in. So talking about KPMG's adoption of AI, we've had data scientists, we've had folks developing AI solutions in the past, but of course, all of this new popularity has brought on kind of like a spotlight on the products that we already offer and the services that we offer. So recently, KPMG started providing free trainings, both through platforms like I've taken courses from MIT. All of those were sponsored by KPMG, and KPMG also has its own training facility and training course material and a training program. And I'm part of that program and very fortunate to have that opportunity. The past couple of months, I've had the opportunity to teach about 500 plus professionals. So it was a very large of responsibility that I had. So we're definitely ramping up. We also have our own version of ChatGPT, which is the private version of ChatGPT, and none of the data that we put in there goes out of KPMG. We'll talk about it later during the session as we go, but these are just
Hmm.
the great things that KPMG has done to adapt and not really say, "Oh, this is a new technology. We need to really be careful of it." Rather, it's already let's try to understand how it works. Let's try to figure out what the risks are, and let's try to adapt to it. So, yeah,
Well, yeah, so I'm most definitely talking to the right person today, since we're going to be focusing on those factors. I don't know, I feel like the topic that we picked is really amazing and very relevant, because I think that
absolutely.
there's a lot of companies that are just trying to go out there and make sure that if you've got a toaster, you got to have AI. How do we put AI into this toothbrush or something? And
Right.
sometimes it's perhaps not the right thing. So let's talk about what factors you think a company should consider whether when they're deciding whether or not to implement AI into operations or product development.
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest the biggest area where you would implement AI is when you have a large data set and you're trying to figure out a pattern, or you're trying to figure out an answer for something that can be derived from the data set and the pattern. So let's say you're looking at a data set that says, here's the list of medications and here's the dosages for the medications each day. And let's say you have a new medication that for which the dosage has not been really identified, then you would use the existing data to really try and figure out the pattern for here are the existing medications that looked really similar to this. And here's how we can figure out the pattern and get to the answer, or extrapolate, really, if I were talking in a statistics sense. So that's just one example of when it's a good situation to implement AI. And it doesn't mean just because AI is popular and we have all of these AI tools at our disposal, it doesn't mean that we should be using AI in our solutions. Here are some of the things to consider. To really think about the business objective of when and where AI can come in and be useful. Let's say you're working with a lawyer and you're trying to figure out, hey, how can I replace this lawyer with AI? You might try, but you will never get as good as a lawyer who's went to a law school, right? As much as you know ChatGPT may pass the bar exam, but the human skills that come with being able to negotiate, being able to really try to understand what the unique problems of a particular case may be, right? So it is try to figure out what the business objective, what is it that you're trying to solve with AI? Can this problem be solved using data? If it's not a data problem, it's most likely not an AI problem. Um,
That's
and
really
also,
interesting. And we saw kind of
yeah,
you mentioned that maybe it's not the right thing for law, even though it does pass the bar exam. And we did see an interesting example of a lawyer who was trying to use ChatGPT in a in court, and ChatGPT started hallucinating and making up sort of names of cases, which he included in his statements. And
right.
so therefore, then of course he got into trouble because as the judge started looking up these cases, he's like, these cases aren't for real. They don't really exist. So that's
Right.
probably a good example of, like, when you need to not necessarily not look at that, but perhaps you need to sort of be careful of how you're implementing, right?
Exactly. That's right. And that's also another thing to consider. Now, even if you do end up using AI within your product or to build your product, make sure that you know where the data is coming from. Make sure you know that the data is coming from a valid source, that it's devoid of biases. So it's important, one, to consider the objectives. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? Try to understand the quality of the data that you're using. And then also try to bring in AI expertise and resources that you may have in-house or outside of your company. Try to have them provide you and validate whether this is truly an AI problem.
Hmm.
Think about also the cost and the ROI of implementing AI solutions, because sometimes these AI solutions, when you do add the additional component of large language models that are out there, you may have to incur additional costs because, of course, new technologies are not cheap. So think about whether it really makes sense to have that additional cost. Is it just um, nice to have, or is it truly an aspect of your product that you absolutely need? Also, think about regulatory and ethical consideration. As of today, we don't have as many regulations that are out there, except for the GDPR. Within Europe, there are stricter GDPR regulations that are out there that do require companies to um, declare that they are using AI, whereas in the US, it's a little bit more in the preliminary stages. I know the Biden administration is trying to put together a lot of AI initiatives and trying to work with other countries and the large technology firms to come up with a more structured regulatory guidance. So far, we do have a lot of guidance, but we don't have as many regulations. So it's also important to be aware of those legal and ethical implications, especially if you're going to be implementing AI solutions within a global market rather than just the US. Also, think about the competitive landscape. What are your competitors doing? Are they using AI, and if they are, what are they using it for? If AI might not be just because your competitors are using it doesn't mean that you should be using it either, right? So let's say you're a mental health firm that's looking to use AI. Um, for a customer service scenario, AI might be a really great tool to use, especially to get those preliminary questions of why a customer might be calling, what type of issue they're dealing with. Whereas, let's say you're a mental health company, like for example, Talkspace, or a therapy provider, for example, right? It might not be as advantageous to use AI to request to obtain data from your customers and ask them, hey, what's your problem, what are you trying to go through, because those might be very sensitive health related issue, and someone might really truly need help right at that moment while the AI is trying to sort through the issue itself. So think about really the problem that you're solving and the risks associated with using the AI.
Yeah, that's so true. What does a company do if they are trying to prepare for having an AI infrastructure that supports like some of these issues? You mentioned that it's not always the
Mhm.
right thing, and so how do you make sure that the AI, the internal, of course, technology that they have is ready for AI implementation?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first place that you'd start with is what you already have, right? You before you even bring a new technology into your environment, you would have to assess your current IT infrastructure to really try to understand what are the limitations. Do we have high performance servers, GPUs, cloud-based solutions, whatever they may be, to support the computational demands of the AI workload, so that and also make sure that you do test the solution in your you know in the test and staging environments before you even productionalize it. So all of those, so do assess your current IT infrastructure, and then also think about scalability and flexibility. So let's say you do implement AI and your customers really love it, and they say, "Woohoo! This is amazing." For example, let's say you just implemented an AI for your customer service solutions, and now customers are really happy with your product, and they say, "Woohoo! This company answers all of my questions immediately. Let me buy a lot more products from this company." So you might see a lot more influx of business or customers that are accessing your products. So ensure that you also have that level of flexibility, scalability, and flexibility to handle additional volume as you go. So that's another important aspect to consider when you're implementing AI solution and thinking about infrastructure. Also think about security measures. I think one of the major downfalls, or rather like one of the major issues that we're noticing, is that as companies start to implement AI, they're very excited about it. They're like, this is great. Let's head right into it. Um, that's awesome. But have you thought about the security measures? What about um, who is getting access to the data that's being fed into these AI systems? What role, and this doesn't just apply to does your data go outside of your network, right?
Mhm.
Also think about the security measures within your organization itself. Who has access to these AI solutions, the back end of this AI solution, the data that's being fed into it? Think about those role-based access controls, making sure that you limit access to folks who have access to the data used by these AI systems. One really interesting example that just came up recently was that Tesla was in the news for because employees within Tesla actually had access to very sensitive private videos of Tesla car users, both inside the car and outside of the car, and they had access to children and people's houses, people's garages, and things that happened there. So, and these videos were being circulated within Tesla, and that really all caused a huge alarm within Tesla users. Yeah, exactly right there. So and it's very important as companies start to adapt to these AI systems to make sure that they have important security and user access controls to make sure that they know exactly who has access to the data that's used by these systems and how these people are using the data, who's accessing it, what are they doing with that data. So all of these considerations are absolutely crucial.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think you touched on something that I also wanted to talk about, which is what about their workforce? Like, what should you do? Everybody, it's almost like it feels like it's too late. People found out about it, 100 million users plus for ChatGPT, and they're already using it. And now we're finding like all these sort of problems and potential like ethical issues, like the one you just mentioned. And we talked about the lawyer. I heard another case from Samsung that was the same thing. Samsung engineers started pasting their code into ChatGPT, and of course, it's proprietary code that
Right.
because it's training the engine, everybody will have access to. So, how should you go about making sure that your workforce, like I don't know, you don't stop them perhaps from using some of these things that are so useful, but that you let them know, how they can work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all starts with appropriate training. First and foremost, make sure that your organization has appropriate controls in place, whether it's user access controls, change management controls, program development controls, making sure that the right people have access to the right data and the access is audited appropriately and frequently, right? Every quarter or at least um, it's recommended that access audits are done every quarter or at least biannually to make sure that the right people have access to the right data. Also, make sure that there are policies in place to ensure to enforce these controls and and in these procedures, right? Making sure and informing employees that here's if you've given access to these sensitive data, here's what you can and cannot do with that data. And if people with privileged access to these sensitive data and AI systems, if they do need to make major changes to those systems, make sure that the change is tested, that appropriate people have approved the changes before it productionalizes. So
Hmm.
all of these controls and policies and procedures are absolutely important, especially because we don't have stringent regulations just yet, right? So as a company, it's really upon the company to have these important measures in place so that they're preventing themselves. They're not only protecting their customers, they're also preventing themselves from any legal litigations. So
Hmm.
that's why it's very important to have all of these measures in place. And of course, once all of these are in place, train your employees. Let them know that this is what they need to do. These are the advantages and disadvantages of using AI. Here's what they should and should not do, and communicate the consequences of what to expect if in case they don't adhere to these policies. So that's how we make sure that we're following a more safe environment. We're providing a more safe environment for both the employees and the customers.
Hmm. Yeah, and one of the things that I learned recently was this article about Adobe now accepting AI generated art. And what spoke to me about this article was that things are changing so quickly that I think companies are having a hard time figuring out, what to do. However, while doing this, Adobe set some standards about how people who are submitting AI are supposed to process their artwork to make sure that it's high quality, that it doesn't have any identifying humans. And then they did this thing where any generative AI illustrations that have faces have to have uh, release forms. And so basically what's happening with this is that Adobe is essentially absorbing some of those responsibilities, and they're using their stock library to train their AI. We saw another example of ChatGPT, OpenAI, partnering with another stock company to also train their generative AI tools, so that things can be now, who trust Adobe are probably going to feel safer going through Adobe because they're not generating anything that nobody has legal rights to. They're using a company. So I think like maybe that's one way of sort of taking, maybe not, sort of separating yourself from some of the legal issues, like operating from trusted companies that have these sort of infrastructures in place, especially like as we see companies like OpenAI partnering with other stock companies to make all that a little bit safer. So do you see any other sort of mistakes that companies are making when they're maybe a little bit too quick? We mentioned a couple of examples with the lawyers and
Mhm.
Samsung. So what sort of mistakes can people make when they try to adopt these kind of technologies without considering the potential risks?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Um, some of the mistakes that and sometimes it's not really mistakes that companies intend to make. These can
Hmm.
be mistakes or downsides of using AI that companies just need to be a little bit more vigilant about. Is that biases in AI have become very prevalent and and a huge issue. For example, here's what I mean when I say biases in AI. Your AI is only as good as your data is. So, because it is trained on a large set of data, you want to ensure that your data is devoid of any biases, such as gender biases, racial biases. These are biases related to age, location. So these are just examples of certain types of biases that can be introduced within data, knowingly or unknowingly. One such example is where Amazon implemented an AI solution as part of their HR processes, and they noticed that the software was very much biased towards male job applicants, because historically, the applications that were received by Amazon were from male applicants, were predominantly from male applicants, and the female applicants were a minority in the total population of the applications that they received. So yes, exactly. So and soon the applicants and both the HR and the applicants noticed that the system was pretty much penalizing women because its data was skewed towards men. So it's very important, although Amazon didn't intend for their AI system to have this bias, it just it was just a byproduct of the data that they were using, which contained some of these biases. So it's important to ensure that your data is representative of a larger population that's all encompassing, right? Making sure that your data includes both males and females, both folks from a variety of different ethnicities. So all of these important considerations are important. Making sure that your data is representative is absolutely important. And data quality is also, in that lens, data quality is also important because if your data is messy, outdated, you could have unreliable answers produced by AI. So that's why I say, I wish there was a data cleaner role. Like most data engineers actually do this job, and it's actually and although data scientists do get the name of the sexiest job of the year, I think they were titled that by major magazines. Data engineers do have a very important role to do, and that is really cleaning up these data, ensuring the data quality. So that's very important, as well as that's one of those issues that we do see pop up as companies start to implement AI, uh, and moving too fast. So I think we touched on it a bit earlier before. Everybody's implementing AI, and it's very natural for companies to say, "Look, they're using AI. This competitor is using AI. Let's do it. Let's do it fast, right?" So it's so slow and steady wins the race, and that applies
Right,
to
right.
AI as well. Making sure that take make sure that as you move towards AI solutions, make sure that you understand uh, what are the what are the issues with it. Almost all of the AI solutions will have a list of risks that they will, if you take any of the AI solutions that are out there, whether that's OpenAI, whether that's the solutions produced by Anthropic, any of the major AI providers, you'll see that they'll have disclaimers, right? Even when you open up ChatGPT, it'll say, "Please don't rely on us heavily. This can contain errors. The system can hallucinate." So making sure that you're aware of these disadvantages, or
Mm,
rather downfalls of using AI,
mm.
is very important as we move towards these AI solutions at the rate that we are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we're seeing examples of companies not necessarily rushing, but maybe trying things out and seeing, like people say, what sticks, I guess. One of the examples for that was the release by Google of this tool to quote unquote help journalists write news. And, say that them was actually unsettling because
Mhm.
although they were saying this tool called Genesis is going to help journalists but not replace them, and then of course they put yet, that the tool really was, it just doesn't belong clearly in the same way that a human has the ability to reflect on what they're writing and
Right.
understand whether or not they're being controversial or maybe
Uh-huh.
being inclusive. Like all these things are now being tested by all of these tools that people are releasing just because they have them. And in the same way, we have this other article here talking about the AI as an internet existential crisis, that because of all of the usage of AI that is happening, we're just going to get a flood of things that weren't created by humans and have none of the benefits of humanity, sort of validating and taking a look at some of these tools. Having worked at a newspaper and in radio and TV, I can certainly relate that the human touch is really important, but it's unstoppable that we are now going to be dealing with, instead of, say, the flood of data that we get today, instead of having to deal with like reading from 10 different sources, is going to be 2,000 sources tomorrow because a lot of it is going to be AI generated. So there's this
Yeah.
like flood of information, and it's going to be weird because I bet you then we're going to be creating AIs to like process through the information. So we'll have like AIs generating too much information, and then other AIs that are sitting there trying to make all the information that we are trying to absorb simpler for us to
Yep.
understand. And it feels like a AI arms race.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And this reminds me uh, of a meme that I saw recently. I'm going to drop the link in there. It's a very funny meme. Basically, people right now, especially content creators, I've seen people using AI, and there's nothing wrong with using AI for content creation, but it's a very funny meme where, this guy, yeah, exactly that. So on the
That's
left
great.
side, you have this guy asking AI to turn a single bullet into a long email, and then on the other side,
That's
they're
so
using the
perfect.
same AI to to
To
summarize it
turn it
into a single
back.
point.
So true.
Exactly.
So true. And I think a lot of what we end up doing with AI is summarizing, but what
Hmm.
AI tends to do is like expand. I know, when I'm using AI to help me write things, I talk to it and ask it to write a certain way so that it's more like me. And it
Right.
always tends to be very wordy. And so you
Yep.
have to like really teach it. I mean, I think it's going to get better, but yeah, why are we making it? Why are we not just making it a few bullet points? Yeah, so
Exactly.
that's such a great. I'm
Exactly.
glad you share that. So is there certain industries where you see AI as being super advantageous or maybe not advantageous at all. Like I showed the
Yeah.
example of news. I mean, we're already getting a lot of news that come from AIs, whether we think of it or not. Like I know I get a lot of like stock kind of stuff that would be cumbersome for a human to write that I know an AI wrote somewhere because it's very formulaic kind of data. And that
Mhm.
can be in a way useful. I know that, I do a weekly newsletter for this show. So I
Right.
use the AIs to help me summarize because
Mhm.
after we have this long, 30, 40-minute conversation, it's
Right.
nice to be able to read like some quick notes. And I think that that's a great job for AI. So
Yes.
where do you see kind of like the right place for AI and where do you see it really taking off?
Yeah, great question. Um, the first thing that comes to mind is content creation. Content
Mm,
creation is initially when YouTube started out. I think that to me was more of like when content creation really became mainstream. I
mhm,
think before that we had blog posts and so on and so forth. So I think content creation is initially was viewed more like a, oh, this person creates content on their free time, it's more of a side hustle. Now content creation has actually become a very integral part of companies, personal brands. Even when you go for a job interview, you're it's very common for people to put their LinkedIn profiles on their resumes, right? So when a recruiter goes in and views your LinkedIn profile, they want to ensure that they have the right idea about who's, your accomplishments, what have you done, what have you articulated your thoughts into articles, posts. So that's why content creation is super important, and for companies, in order for them to really stand out and be on the front page of their customers feed, it's important for them also to kind of start to build this brand through content creation, right? So given it, especially after COVID-19, and
mm,
since almost all of us at least are either working um, hybrid on a hybrid mode or remotely, it's really important to ensure that both companies and individuals and professionals have a presence online. Content creation has been made super easy ever since
mhm,
ChatGPT, Dolly, Midjourney, all of these amazing tools. Even Canva has its own AI integration. So content creation has changed already because of AI. We're able to make faster content. If you've heard of the tool called Descript, it's
mhm,
it's like magic. You can put a video in there, it provides the transcript automatically, and you can just edit it like you would edit a Word doc. And these are just amazing things AI can do. Um, that were previously unheard of. I can just imagine a character in my mind and then type a description of it in Dolly or Midjourney, and I would have an image of it. Now, Runway 2 has has created a tool, Runway Gen 2. Look it up if you haven't. It's an image to video tool where you can go pretty much from an image and creating a whole video out of just that one image. It'll talk, it'll walk, it'll move. Yeah, it's fascinating what it can do. And we also have Synthesia, which is also a very similar example to this one that can go from both text to video and image plus text to video. So content creation has forever changed. If anyone watching this, if you'd like additional tools or tips, feel free to just message me, and I'd be able to like share some of these links of the tools that I'm discussing today. So content creation for sure. Drug discovery is another amazing area where I see a lot of potential using AI. Google released AlphaFold, which is a tool that can predict 3D structures of proteins. This used to take a very long time for scientists to figure out, understand, and predict the 3D structures of proteins. Why is this important? Because this is going to speed up drug discovery. Now, and we've also seen AI being used to come up with, virtual experiments. I'm sure that AI is going to accelerate drug discovery. Um, Customer service is a very easy one. We've seen a lot of companies already implementing conversational chatbots as part of their AI suite of products. It's very amazing because it's not like your chatbots from the yesteryears, like a couple of years ago. Your chatbots, when you call a customer service or chat with a customer service chatbot, it would say press one, press two, go here, go there. Do you can please say yes or no? Rather, now these AI based customer service tools, what they're actually doing is they already have your data, and they when you ask them a specific question, let's say about a file. I'm just making this up, but let's say you've ordered something online in an e-commerce website. If you and these advanced chatbots, conversational AI chatbots, what they're doing is that they're able to pull up the file of a customer and then say, hey, are you calling about this particular order? What would you like for this to be done? Would you like to start a return? And of course, you might have seen this in Amazon. So these are just examples of where I think AI has done a tremendous job already. And so is marketing. Just like content
Mm.
creation, marketing, within marketing, we've seen marketing materials, creating marketing materials has become super, super easy. Um, and talking about these, although we have all of these advantages, there are certain areas where AI isn't the all-encompassing solution, or it's like the panacea for the for all the needs. AI is always a good partner for a human. It's AI is best when used in combination with human oversight,
Mhm.
especially in areas related to mental health counseling, legal and judicial decisions when handling sensitive data. And this handling sensitive data is actually very widespread. Like, for example, like the Tesla story that we spoke about, we're making sure that yes, we collect data, amazing, we're able to use this data, we're able to generate insights out of this data, but make sure that you understand who has access to that data, what
Mm.
can they do with it. So all of these implications are any aspect where human input or human advice is needed, AI should be used with discretion. It should be used to augment the work of humans and not replace.
That's true. And I think that we have seen some interesting examples in talking about data and how it is being used and how companies really need to be careful because I don't know that everybody understands that when you're using ChatGPT, that you're also training ChatGPT. And so, that goes back to like training staff, but an understanding of what happens with your data is really key. This week, Microsoft, of course, announced that they are and I'm sorry, this is the wrong article. And Microsoft announced that they're creating a business version of
Mhm.
ChatGPT. So that is, I think an interesting development for the platform that now instead of just using ChatGPT that trains the algorithm and that where your data, especially your business data, is not protected, that they're actually bringing this into a new version of ChatGPT called Bing Chat Enterprise. And anytime you use Bing Chat Enterprise, that data is not going to be used to train the algorithm and it's going to stay within the company. I think that is super smart. And I think that, that's the kind of solution that a lot of companies are going to be looking for. It's, I think, pretty economical to use this thing. But then at the same time, you see companies that are trying to use AI and it generates an ethical issue. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that relationship between this AI adoption and business ethics, especially when it comes to privacy data. Today we had this article from Netflix and Engadget and how they're listing a $900,000 a year job as actors who are normally making like $200 a day and they don't work every day. It's not like they make that money every day either. They're continuing
Right.
to strike because there's actors who don't make a lot of money. Meanwhile, and I tried going actually to their listing,
Okay.
and I think it basically the whole website went down because everybody's going to. First, I don't know if it's the AI is going to see if they can make 900,000 or individuals, but
Right.
their whole site was down because they realized we need to take it down. People aren't reacting to this particular. So that's a good example, I think, of,
Mhm.
perhaps a company not considering the ethical issues of them, you know, going fast to AI adoption while there's a lot of controversy around that. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly important to note because especially where the creative um, jobs that do have that creative lens in it, we do see that um, it's possible for them to be a bit vulnerable to all of these AI advancements, and we've seen a lot of artists also claim that there has been plagiarism and infringement of their work without giving them credit because a lot of the data that's been trained by these AI systems like DALL-E, we see that they've been trained on the data that's out there in the internet. Like, how do they do it? They scrape the data that's out there in the internet in large volumes and train and their models are trained on these data that's available publicly. So some of these artists have put up their work, it's and these AI generated images are based off of the work of these artists. So we do continue to see such issues arising, especially in the creative community.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I saw this article for Sarah Silverman, who had written a book, and it was not, and the book still had copyrights, but it was somehow been published on the internet, and she claimed that some of the AI tools had used it, had absorbed it in some way. They're not sure how it got there, but that absorption is getting tested in the legal system because they are suing. She and a few other people are suing. I'm not sure which company it was. That because of that absorption, she should have some copyrights. And there's the whole question of when an AI generates art, like who does the
Who
AI
owns
have
it?
copyrights?
Right.
Do the people that help train the AI have some sort of rights? And that seems to be all sort of being worked out right now in process. So you mentioned one of the things that you mentioned was that you use a sort of internal version of OpenAI at KPMG that is a protected version. We saw the example from Microsoft that they're kind of opening that up to like everybody now. So some
Right.
industries are maybe trying to ban the adoption for their employees. I don't think that's going to work. Companies like
Right.
KPMG are embracing it and releasing controlled versions for their employees. What's the
Mhm.
best way for companies to sort of try to work with it? Because honestly, it's unstoppable. To personally, that's what I believe. So what's the
Yeah.
best way of getting it into the hands of employees, I guess, safely?
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a good point because it is unstoppable. It's not just OpenAI that has these conversational AI capabilities using large language models. We have several different applications, Bing Chat, we have Bard, we have Anthropic has Claude. So we have so many such examples of conversational AI tools that are out there. Even let's say a company blocks all of these, right? There are applications that use OpenAI APIs to create their own chatbots. You can possibly never. It's highly impossible to be able to block all applications that use large language models to produce content. So it's very important for companies to adapt to these AI solutions and train their employees on how to use them, when to use them, and not to use them. So what KPMG did is that we have a private cloud instance of OpenAI's GPT version. I believe we currently have GPT 3.5 deployed. So we are able to use ChatGPT, but because it is in a private cloud environment, any of the data that we input into the system does not go outside of KPMG. It can be used for client work, provided that we read the client contractual terms and make sure that they're okay with us using cloud solutions. So we've KPMG has pretty much given us this and said, hey, here's this new toy that's out there, but we made a version of this toy that you can still play around with, uh, and but you won't be penalized for using it, and any of the data that you enter won't leave. So feel free to use it as you may wish. So, and of course, like we're provided procedures and guidelines that make sure that you use it with your customer's consent if you're inputting any data that's going to be theirs, and if not, also make sure that you have your engagement manager, your partner's approval for using AI solutions and AI. Any answers that you may receive from these AI tools. So it's very important for companies to provide one education about how to use these tools, implement these tools within their company in a safer environment, because it's going to be a very tough battle to be able to block all such solutions, and it's going. Do you remember those days when our teachers used to say that you will never have a calculator in your pocket all the time, and this is why you have to do math problems by hand. But to be fair to them, they didn't have those technologies back then. But now we do. Everybody has a phone. It's a calculator. It can do many more things than being a calculator. So I think both the education systems and organizations need to adapt to these AI systems and understand and really use the advantages of the systems for by teaching the students how to use these in ways that are productive. Um, Come up with, for educators out there, I'd say, don't worry about your students plagiarizing using AI. Come up with innovative questions. Have open book exams. Come up with exams that help them build something, so help them create something out of the knowledge that they can get from the internet, from AI. Because when they're out in the professional world, they have all of these tools at their disposal. Nobody's going to say, close your notebooks, close your laptops.
Everybody has a calculator. You just ask Siri, hey, what is it? Yeah, how much should I tip here? That kind of thing. Like the
Yeah,
world doesn't exist where there's like no calculators. Everybody has a camera. I
right.
mean, there's cameras everywhere. You can't go out of, your house without running into cameras. So you just have to
Mhm.
adjust. That reminds me of a story that I also saw about OpenAI quietly shutting down its AI detection tool because it's so unreliable that it was giving false positives. Like it was saying that the Constitution was written by AI and parts of like the Bible were written by AI. The tools themselves were analyzing things that have been previously written and claiming that they were written by AI tools, which of course is ridiculous unless, all of the founders were actually just AIs, which again is preposterous. So there is no, I always thought as soon as I saw this tool, I thought, what's going to happen is somebody will come up with a tool and then somebody will come up with another tool that filters it so that the tool that you were using to detect will not be able to catch it. And then that tool will then develop some additional features that will help it catch up. But then somebody will build a better tool. Like it's just like an
Yeah.
arms race and it's not going to go anywhere. We just need to rethink the way that we can, we think about, um, you know, what people have available to them. And I think, like you said, understanding that these tools make people better, more efficient, we just need to figure out, when you are learning something, I learned this when I was teaching some classes in college for like graphic design and HTML and CSS. Occasionally like a student would ask me for an extra credit project and I would say, okay, write, some sort of article about somebody. And I could tell that they just like copied and pasted from the internet. It's just that now they have better tools. So it's
Right.
it's like, okay, the problem was actually the assignment. They're not going to
Right.
learn anything from that assignment if they could just use an AI tool. So what exactly are you trying to get people to learn? And how do you validate that? I think that's a new question for AI. Now that we have everybody has a calculator and a
Right.
camera, then what does that mean? Like, what do you actually have to know? Maybe the assembling of these things in an effective way. Like if somebody writes a script, is it a good script or not? Like, who cares who helped them write it? I think what you'll
Exactly.
find is people are going to discover that AIs in the default setting, are going to produce content that looks the same as all the other AI content. And so we're going to find sort of, I don't know, creative ways or ways of, I don't know, figuring out, are you being an effective user for these tools? Not, did you use them or not? Because that is over. That battle already lost. Like based on that
Exactly.
article, we already lost it once, and it's going to get worse. So you need to adjust. What do they always say? Like in the armed forces, like adjust and adapt.
Right.
Or we're not going to get anywhere, right?
Exactly. I totally agree. I think it's now in the ball is in the educator's court now. The students all have AI tools, whether you like it
Everybody's
or
doing
you're
it.
not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's over. It almost was ridiculous to me that somebody was trying to say banning the tools. Not going to ban it. It's just too good for you, not for people not to use it. So you need to
Yep.
change I mean, there's a lot of issues, especially regarding copyrights, because the work, like if somebody publishes something that was generated from an AI, it's not
Hmm.
that who has copyrights, although that's a question right now. But then if you
Right.
publish that and somebody else copies the thing that you made with an AI, then okay, so is them copying it illegal now because they're just copying the thing that you copied that you didn't do?
Hmm.
So is it illegal for somebody to copy something that you copied? From somebody like if you copy the test from the person that did poorly on the test, whose fault is that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think all those
And
things are. Go ahead.
that's a pretty interesting point that you bring up because recently seven AI companies. I just dropped a link in the chat for us.
Hmm.
They self they voluntarily committed to responsible AI developments. Amazon, Anthropic, Google, AI, Meta, and Microsoft, OpenAI, to name a few. Um, they actually, if you go to point 3 of that link, you'll see that they're developing technical mechanisms to indicate AI generated content. Basically, they're going to be watermarking AI content to reduce fraud and deception. And this is,
Mm.
and if you, and I put a link to the white paper that
Hmm.
was published by the fact sheet that was published by White House, and this is something they've told White House that they're going to be doing. And I'm curious to see how that's going to play out because what if
There's
now
a
all
whole
ChatGPT
other,
content?
yes, is watermarked to the source somehow. Yeah, and that also
Yeah,
raises the question. Okay, well now that means that everything that you write is going to be traced back, and that means that if they're tracking all that, then they're also tracking everything you do with it, and you become part of the sequence of events that could have potential repercussions in some way legally. And so,
right.
what is that going to do? And do governments need to have that amount of control? I mean, it's a crazy world, Priya. I don't know. I don't know.
It
Some days I'm
is.
like excited, and some days I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. So yeah, I guess we'll check in here every week, and we'll be talking to more people and figuring out what we're all going to be doing. But yeah, and that's a fantastic. I love that post, and that's why people should follow you. I know that you were recently in our LinkedIn New York office sharing time with other creators. I mean, if people don't
Yeah.
know you, you really do have an extensive sort of social media body of knowledge, and we're going to be doing some courses with us. And I do
Yep.
love the post that you wrote about the key takeaways from your experience, meeting
Mhm.
other LinkedIn people. So let's talk a little bit about that, and perhaps some of the other things you everybody should be following, Priya, but then also anything else that you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, two great things that you mentioned there. So, that I've been very fortunate to be a part of. So, the first thing was the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. So, this program was absolutely life changing. It is LinkedIn sponsored program that enables creators to bring their voice out and provides us education on how to create efficient content that's more interesting and engaging. So basically, LinkedIn put out an application for this 12-week program. It's a paid program. There were, I think, about a couple thousand applicants that they received, and out of those, they picked a handful of 120 of us. We had CEO of Mashable, we had a astrophysicist, we had doctors in there, we had amazing people that you've already had in your show, like Kate Strachunier.
Hmm.
Um, we had really amazing people. Every single one of the other 119 people that were part of the program were had absolutely amazing backgrounds, and it was such a fortunate experience to be part of that group. So at the end of that the 12-week program, we actually had the opportunity to go to LinkedIn's headquarters in, well, LinkedIn's New York office in the Empire State Building, and meet the fellow creators and talk to the LinkedIn product team and provide them feedback on how to improve some of LinkedIn products that are out there. So when we say LinkedIn products, we're talking about posts, newsletters, all these other capabilities within LinkedIn. So some the key takeaways from that meeting or throughout that program was that if you're going to create content and if you'd really like to build your own set of followers and those who support the work that you do, make sure that you produce content and be consistent. Don't worry about creating excellent content that's newsworthy. That's not, not everything that you post will be that, and nobody in this world can post newsworthy content every single time. So make sure that you share whatever knowledge that you've already gained. You're an expert in something. Even if you're not an expert, the knowledge that you have may benefit at least one person in this world. So if you don't worry about being having that imposter syndrome. Feel free to just share knowledge and share it consistently. When you network with people, provide value first. Ask you can contribute to their work before pitching your request. So I've seen folks, in DMs, they may say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job." No, and it's a really good thing to be able to reach out and step out of your comfort zone and ask for that help, but make sure that you do provide some value. Talk about the work that the person that you're messaging is, that they've done in the past. Show your interest in what they've done. So that's the second key takeaway that I learned. And then relationships, the third takeaway is that relationships aren't built overnight or just in one DMs. Keep providing value to your audience, whether that's through posts, and this can be applicable to in your professional life as well. Make sure you keep in touch with those key people that are valuable in your professional life, whether that's mentors, your boss, your boss's boss, or it could be folks that you're managing, your peers, the people that you oversee. Making sure that you identify those key relationships first of all, and make sure that you have a consistent way to just check in on these people. Just say, "Hey, how's everything going?" That can be enough. Making sure the relationships are not just built overnight; they are built over time by providing value.
That's
And
so
the
true.
second point, and the second point that you mentioned is, yes, I am working on a LinkedIn Learning course, and I'm super grateful to Jennifer for that opportunity. Jennifer Brady, quick shout out. The course's name is Advanced Python Projects. Although the name may sound very high level, very advanced, although it does contain the word advanced, it can be. It is geared for folks that do have some knowledge about Python. If you're looking to build AI tools and you don't know where to start, this will be a great course for you. And that's going to
Yes,
be
you have.
hopefully
Yeah.
out by the end of the year. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
I love all your content, and I just checked the time, and we are like over time because literally I was just having such a great time talking to you. So
Me
everybody
too.
should follow you. And you have some, I just went through your feed, a lot of really good tips and tricks, and you are very consistent about posting really great stuff. So I really have enjoyed this time talking to you. I am sorry if we went too long because I just checked the time and I'm like, it feels like we just got started. So a lot of fun for me. And I
Me
just want to
too.
point out a couple of things. Thank you so much. I feel like in this show, the person who gets the most out of it is me because I get to talk to like amazing people like you. And I feel like I just have so much fun doing it. And so I think like
Same.
you're probably, first of all, I was jealous because I didn't get to go into that program. And though I think you really reinforced a lot of the things that I've learned over time. And I'm never really worried about how popular stuff is. I'm just really having a good time talking to people and enjoying, I don't know, the ability to almost like collaborate on what's going to happen with all of this AI. So I did want to mention that we do have this amazing newsletter, and this is last week's newsletter where we talked to Jess Ramos, who you may know, and we talked about how to get that first job in data analytics, and every week we have a different topic. But I think the best way of finding out about the show is by just subscribing to the newsletter. Of course, you can like and subscribe in all social media platforms, but definitely the newsletter because you get an email each week with that week's guest, a little summary of what happened, and then a link to the video and all the highlights, plus all the links. Holy cow, we covered a lot of links. So I have like 20 tabs open. So I'll make sure they also go in the show again today. There's also some other places. We actually do have a page that you can go to in addition to the newsletter. There's also an episode guide where you can find all the previous and future episodes. We do have a YouTube channel as well as an audio podcast. And next time we have another great guest. We have Vinu Ganesh. We're going to be talking about this interesting field of data engineering in artificial intelligence, and he's going to talk about the democratization of social media and how, as you mentioned, Priya, that everybody can now have all these great tools. When I talked to Donnie Ma recently, and we were talking about media and how you think that TV is going to get rid of like radio and newspapers, but what ended up happening was that now everybody gets to have a radio station. Everybody gets a TV station. This is like a TV show here
Right.
between us. And look at
That's
all the
right.
people we got from all over the world. Like, when would that have happened ever? So, thank you so
Exactly.
much for coming to the episode. And I really appreciate your time. And I apologize for the length, but I think we just ended up having too much fun and we went a little long. So, thank you so much, Priya.
So true. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Ray. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right,
Had
we'll
so
talk
much
later.
fun. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye.